Welcome everyone to a very different video that I just came up with because I realised I have quite a lot of these, and it is movie related books such as ones on film theory, film criticism, ones about the history of film, biographies from directors and biographies from actors. So let's have a look. I don't read much, but let's have a look anyway at what I have that is related to movies. Sorry about the sudden quality change, had to change to a different camera there, the other one went dead. So the first three are Masters of Cinema series, not to be confused with the Eureka home video Blu-ray DVD thing. This is a book series from Cahiers du Cinema. They do a lot of publishing in that work in film, obviously. And it's basically like an entry level look at filmmakers' lives, directors mainly. And I've got one for Charlie Chaplin, of course, which is quite interesting. I read that one through. One on Stanley Kubrick, which was very interesting. And Martin Scorsese, which I don't think I've read the whole way through. But they're all only £6, and I think they've got really nice images and stuff in there as well that make it worthwhile, you know. So that's the Masters. So if you find those in the UK, I think they might be elsewhere, but in the UK you might see them in Waterstones or wherever. Only £6, worth getting. The other two are two companion books, I would say, because it's you can make the connection yourself if you've seen Tim Burton films, Johnny Depp films. I haven't read these ones in a long time, but I remember being very interested in it. This is basically an autobiography. I think it is an autobiography. Yeah, it's basically an autobiography about Burton's career and his life, how he grew up in the Burbank, and just what his career was like in general and what influenced him. And that's where I learnt a lot about Tim Burton as a filmmaker and what he tried to convey in his films like Edward Scissorhands, and where his style and influence sort of came from. So I think that's interesting for Burton fans, definitely. I remember enjoying that one. And the same with this one, which is an unauthorised biography. Yeah, unauthorised biography by Danny White, which was really good. I mean, I learned things about Johnny Depp I had no idea about. Had a fascinating teenage life, I have to say that. And originally he was going to be a musician when he came to Hollywood. And you can see how things fairly turned around. I think it's just fascinating to see the way life paths change over time. It's just amazing. And it's not too long. This one didn't take that long to read. It's 250 pages, but very big text. But that's a very good one. I recommend that one. Another one here we've got, this was a gift that I just got. I haven't started reading it yet. And it's called The Disaster Movie by Greg Sestero and Tom Bissell. And this is on the cult film, which I'm sure some of you may know of, called The Room, which is infamous for how bad it is, almost considered the Citizen Kane of bad movies. And this is basically about the life, about the making of the film from one of the cast members in the film, who was the co-star with the director, actor, writer, producer of the film, called Tommy Wiseau. And basically he's almost like a mythical person because no one really knows where he came from, or you know, he's a very mysterious kind of person because of how strange he is and his accents. You know, you can't even determine where he's from. So yeah, I think I look forward to reading this, definitely. Best movies of the 70s. That's one I haven't read in a long time. It's one of the earliest ones that I bought, and this was a really good book, seeing as I love the 70s cinema. And loads in here that I've already read. And there's even The Great Gatsby starring Robert Redford, which I haven't seen yet, which is surprising. But there's a lot of good movies in there, as you can see in the front. It's got Liza Minnelli from Cabaret. And this is from Taschen, who do a lot of the books. There's ones on best of the 90s, best of the 2000s, best of the 80s. They do a lot of good film books. I have another few here, I think. And another one we've got is another edition. This is the third one I've ever bought. And it's 1001 Movies to See Before You Die, which is an essential book. I just absolutely love these books, and I wait every 2 or 3 years to buy them. This is only what I'm going to. I mean, it was 2 years when I bought the last one because, you know, I want it to be a significant change, and I just love the layout in the new one. It's a lot better, looks a lot nicer, and there's just a couple of updates and films in there, and I think this is a spectacular book. I don't know how many of these I've watched, but it's over 250 by now, I'm sure. Probably near 300. Recommend that, obviously. Most places are going to find that for a tenner, and I think that's great for £10. 1,000-page book. Another one we've got here is from Mark Kermode. I have 3 Mark Kermode books. That's basically most of the books he's done. The first one is Hackney Job, which is his most recent, basically looking at film criticism, its place today due to social media, Twitter and Facebook and even Amazon reviews. He talks quite a bit about Amazon reviews. This is a very interesting book, and if you like Mark Kermode, this is definitely one to read. I just love his sense of humour, and some people don't like the book. It's funny because there's a quote on the back here, a Guardian quote, and I looked on the Guardian, and it's from another film critic on the Guardian, and it was a negative review, and he talks about people being misquoted in the book, and I think there's some sort of irony about that. I don't know, but that's also a good book. Another one is It's Only a Movie, which he talks about how he got into the industry as a film critic, and I think it's quite fascinating to see how he got into film, his film experiences as a kid, why he loves silent running so much. For instance, I think he talks about that every time it's mentioned, or anything he publishes, he'll mention that. This is a really good one. I think it's his first book. I don't know. And another one which I think is probably his best one is The Good, the Bad, and the Multiplex, and he talks about a range of topics such as the problem with 3D cinema, what are film critics for, which is sort of what Hack's Job talks about a bit more. And yeah, this is a fascinating one. He also looks at projectionists, which is really good as well. Highly recommend that one too. Another really good one, I love this one, it's very short but fascinating nonetheless, and it's The Moment of Psycho. There's quite a few books about Psycho and Hitchcock during the making of Psycho. We know the film Hitchcock that came out with Anthony Hopkins a couple of years ago. And this is absolutely fascinating because it's one of the key films in the history of cinema, and it just changed everything afterwards. Everything post Psycho, horror films, it just changed completely. So I recommend that one if you ever find that one. It's by David Thompson. Silent comedy, not too fussed on this one, but it was fascinating because of the depth that this guy went into, Paul Merton, about silent comedians such as Howard Lloyd, Buster Keaton, Charlie Chaplin, and I think Laurel and Hardy are mentioned too. They might be. Yes, they are. Laurel and Hardy, but it's quite a good one as well. It's pretty long, but yeah, I guess it's worth a read. And here's one that was another gift, and it's called Tales from Development Hell, which basically looks at just hell on developing films, because it's such a hard process, just seeing how films go into get made, The trouble it is to get things published, to get things written, to get things produced, to get actors, casting, all that sort of thing. And it's really funny as well, and it's just fascinating to watch it all, because there's stuff here about John Boorman's The Lord of the Rings, a Lara Croft film, I think it was a Tomb Raider film. A Tomb Raider film was going to be directed by someone else. Tomb Raider Chronicles, The Incredible Shrinking film, The Lost Crusade, Trainwreck. That's just the name of the chapters, but there's a lot in here about films that got different directors or just didn't get made at all. I haven't read through it all, but it's quite good. Another two I've got here, one I'm reading at the moment, one I'm halfway through. It's this one here, I'm halfway through it. Easy Riders and Raking Bulls, which basically looks at the new Hollywood changes that went on 1967 to 1972 or 78, that period, just throughout the whole 70s. In fact, this is a really dense book, and it's by Peter Biskind, however the fuck you say his name. This is a great book, it really is. There's so much detail in here about, Francis Ford Coppola, Steven Spielberg, George Lucas, Martin Scorsese, Brian De Palma, Warren Beatty, Dennis Hopper, everyone's in this book. Basically, it was part of this whole new Hollywood thing. Films like The Godfather, The Graduate, Bonnie and Clyde, all those films starting to change the industry rapidly. Another one that's quite similar to that, I think, is Hollywood Hellraisers, which kind of has that period in mind, looking at the lives of Marlon Brando. Well, maybe not Marlon Brando, because he's more 50s actor. Marlon Brando, Dennis Hopper, Warren Beatty, and Jack Nicholson. And I'm only a wee bit through this one, only 80 pages in. But this is a great book so far, Hollywood Hellraisers by Robert Sellers. I recommend that one because it's very funny, and it's fascinating to see the lives of these four very, very, very famous actors. And one that I got from the library, which isn't mine, is I just finished this one. I love this one, Walt Disney, An American Original, which is a biography of his life, and his story is absolutely remarkable, you know. A rags to riches type of story. He just lived on a Kansas farm and had dreams of being an animator later on, and to be honest, he wasn't even that good an animator, as he's admitted. But I mean, Walt Disney, yeah, need I say more? Look at what Walt Disney is today, and it's all because of this guy right here. And he's absolutely one of my he's an inspirational figure. I can get the words out there, because he's just a remarkable man, and his vision's so big. I mean, Disney's went downhill a bit now since the 90s, 80s period, but I think it's a fascinating book, and I love Walt Disney. Simple as that. Here's another one, which is probably the longest book I have, and it's the autobiography by Charles Chaplin, and it's absolutely massive. I mean, I spent so long reading this one. I sat down for 3 hours to get 60 pages read or something once, because it is quite small writing. Yeah, 480 pages, and his story is absolutely fascinating. I'll be making a video about the life of Charles Chaplin, and it's his early life that I'm trying to give more focus to as well, because as I said, in terms of being a rags to riches story, his is the most remarkable. I mean, for us, you know, he could have died or something when he was a kid due to the circumstances that happened in his life. I'll not go into detail, but you know, his story is great. And while this is such a long book, he had 7 wives and something like 13 children, yet there's only a few pages mentioning them. You can say it's a bit narcissistic of him, you know, it's his autobiography. It's hard not to be called a narcissist if you're doing an autobiography. But he really gives a lot of detail about his entire career, the people he met and what it was like. And fascinating, I didn't even know before reading this about him being extradited out of the country during the McCarthy witch hunts, which is quite interesting because he, among many others, were kicked out of America during the 50s because they thought he was a communist, which is not true, as we know. Another 2 I've got here, the last 2 are the big books, and there's one here on Chaplin, which is full of fantastic imagery, such as the one on the back. Absolutely love this one. I mean, the images are gorgeous. There isn't much text, really, but it's nice to see the images that are labelled with where they are and locations, and I think I might use these in the video because I can't find them online. They're definitely rare photos, that's for sure. But let's see, I can try to show you some. There it is. But yeah, big book didn't cost me too much either. And another one is from Taishan, and it's Stanley Kubrick, a complete film, which was only like £8 or £9. It's a rather big book. It does have a lot of text in there, which is good. It's a meaty book. It's got loads of lavish images as well. Jesus, can't open this for shit. Oh, there goes the cover. I hate these covers. I see the point in these fucking covers. They just fall off and get wrecked and ruined. You know what I mean? But under the book looks horrible and boring. But there's an image from 2000 Space Odyssey anyway. So that's it really. I think that's all the film books that I own. As I said, I don't do much reading, but I do love reading books on film. Mostly, I think 2/3 of the books that I'll ever read in my life are going to be related to film, because it's just the ones that interest me. I like to read books for information, and I like to hear stories based on real things rather than fantasy books, which are good, no doubt. You know, books like Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings are absolute masterpieces and classics, but I prefer reading in terms of being an informative kind of experience and a learning experience in terms of learning more about the world, I would say. But yeah, that's my book collection related to film, and I'm wondering, do you own any film books? I would like to actually see some people doing videos like this. I'd be interested to see what film related books people have, so if you do, feel free to make a video, and that's it everybody. Thanks for watching.